Hi and welcome, it's Caroline. Thanks for joining me. Today's video, I'm going to share a flip through of my completed Shabby magazine spine journal. It started as a magazine that I had harvested and became a beautiful place to put memories, store all your fun ideas. I hope to inspire you as I flip through the pages of personal journal. I do have a playlist of this, making this journal, starting it, some page process videos. I also have a playlist of how I first began the magazine spine journals, and I'll share that. Today's completed journal begins with my cover and the closure. I added from the last video a couple of extra things here in the closure, which was made from a cuff. This pretty bow that was with some packaging ribbon, and I put on my little tag the date of the journal, when I started it, when I completed it, and I added a couple more elements here on the top, and this comes off. I'll also say that in this journal are a few different digital leftovers that I'm using in here. I'll list those below. If there's something that is sort of stands out to me, I'll let you know. These pages were embellished with scraps of fabric, scraps of paper that had some texture paste put on them. These are all from my scrap basket. Some of them I did after, and I prepped some of the pages with paint and or gesso. And on here is a piece of ephemera that had, this was from 1922, I think. And then I did some journaling. Clusters. Some of my ruffles were glued together, some of them were sewn on, and not every page has sewing on it. A portion of a packaging that and I added some words on here. Some of the pages have dates. This was made in May. Tabs. Some of my journaling is thoughts. Some of it is verses from songs. This one is Little Pink Houses for You and Me. Pieces of magazines. Buttons. I kept a lot of threads. Some tags that I made with journaling. So this is the same idea as my other spine journals, but I wanted to keep this one as a shabby, more neutral, soft, romantic, all those descriptive words. And this was a thank you note that I loved, and I added a note of my own on the back. here is some older ephemera that I had in my ephemera journal. I embellished some tags and I added some journaling. Lots of mixing and matching. There's some journaling on here too, on these. Painting, staining. Loads of texture. Little grocery list, or little list that I added on there. Layered a lot of different tiny pieces of scrap. This was a very thin one that I made, the page, and I added some different scraping of paints, fabric, cluster of thread. This is a little cluster that I made, and I added it with an eyelet, literal scrap, piece of wax paper, and then the ends of some ribbon and thread, and then I added some of my broken jewelry. Tiny pieces really add to the skinnier pages, to the thinner places. You could add these into a mini journal also. This was a great way for me to take some of my older cutout elements, fussy cuts that I had for a long time in a basket and a file, and then use them on here. This was from a perfume sample with the card. And folded it over with a clip. Some of these have videos to go with the pages. This one does. Did some journaling on there. My little valance has a hidden true friend. And I wrote my own little thoughts. Always make time. This was in June. Here's some book page pieces. This is a video that I had made also. Real pressed flowers from my little stash. Folded, and this was very muted. The quiet in music. I don't know, I must have been listening to something really quiet. And this was obviously very peachy. This was a bird that I had made. I'd seen this in a magazine, a little bird that I folded. Sing for me every day. A little nest that I made with a piece of burlap. A vintage photo that I have a collection of was my mom's neighbor. I love how everything worked out from all the stuff around me. Happy to use these found things that I had collected in a journal like this. And this is authentic from the 20s on a postcard that was gifted to me. Kept very simple. I added some magazine fussy cut, and then on here, this was a card that was made for me from a friend, a happy mail, and then a thank you note from an order that I had placed. I did this with a piece of scrappy wax paper, and I put it on top of a saying, "You make even the ordinary moment special," and I sewed around it, and it found a spot right there on that wider page. This was a pretty color that I loved in a magazine. Cut that out. I think what I was going to do is cut out the wire wreath, but I thought I'm going to put it on this page. It was wide enough, and I added some glue on top to take the shine away, and then added these other pieces of scrap, this fussy cut rose bouquet, and I thought that was a pretty spread. These two pages I have a video for, and I used up another piece of, this was called fabric paper. I have a video on this too, and I thought this was the last one. I took all these little pieces, did some journaling, and made it for this side. Now this page, or these two pages I had done, I think at the same time, and I remembered I had a picture of my mom and dad's wedding day, which is in a few of my journals, and this was done in June, and my mom and dad's anniversary is June the 1st. I thought I'd put that there, and then I remembered that Celeste had sent me some of these beautiful embossed frames in the perfect coloring. My leftovers and little scraps. Les marchandises sont vendues. All the merchandise has been sold, and we loved to go to flea markets together in different places. I thought it was really perfect. This was from an advertisement in a magazine, and I did the same thing. I took the glue and just put on top to cut shine. Journaling. Added little pins here and there. This little girl was also part of a kit. This just gave me kind of wintry vibes, and also because it says January, so I thought that would be perfect to add in here. A little bit of sewing, some buttons, antique-y looking. Ruffles with pattern tissue, different colors of ribbon leftovers, some jute twine. This is a piece of jute twine that I pulled apart, and I thought it looked really nice on the edge. Some of my embossed paper. This was some that I was experimenting with, and some coffee staining, spraying with food coloring on a napkin, and then made some fun easy cluster here with my sewing machine and put that on the bottom. This was a stamp book that I had, and then some little round stickers that were in it. I added some of my, it's dot paint, and then I have some glitter that I added on top of it. A pocket. This was a postcard piece of ephemera, And I turned my ticket that I had left over from my mom when she worked in 1995. This was a tour that she made that was called Past Forgetting. I used that to put some more scraps on, and then a piece of from my Paris magazine, and I just added When in Paris. And this is also from Celeste. This was what I had ordered. And I used some of my magazine flowers, some more of the ribbon. A vintage photo from, this is in the 20s, and there's a beach scene, father and sons I called it. And then I added just some memories of when we were camping, and that's what this whole page sparked. Really fun. And this is a pocket that I had made. I made myself a little parchment bag. And I don't have any glassine bags, so I made one for myself, and then I added more scraps. This was from a dress that I cut apart. And then some more from some Happy Mail. I used this as a journaling card. And then I also had a piece of paper that I was practicing, lined paper that I had coffee stained. It started like this, and then I added something from the printer to make it this receipt, and did my journaling on there. Piece of a bag that had a stamp that I ordered from, and I added it in here, from Tailor Made Journals, and it's my Tiffany stamp. And it also had this really beautiful wax seal. I don't have any of those, and I thought that would be perfect to take it apart and finally put it in a journal. More Happy Mail and leftover ephemera, a journaling card. This is my flowers from our old house that we used to live in, and this is from the backyard. I fussy cut those, and I added to some embossed paper, a cluster with some of my laminated pieces. Scraps of tissue paper, a napkin, little cut out, scrappy butterflies. And then this is some packaging that I thought I'm going to do some circles, different sizes, and do a collage of circles. And I had all these little pieces from magazine, and I added little scrap backings, and this was my art page using flowers. Had some more ephemera that I sewed around, and then I was going to use it as a tag. I glued it onto the page to make a tuck spot, and I kept a receipt from our cruise in here. It was pink, and it was in my file folder. I thought it was a perfect place for that. A scrap piece of magazine that I cut out, and then I backed it with some lined paper. Added an eyelet, a piece of fabric made into a bow, And then all of these fabrics glued on with some thread. Left this one pretty simple. Love the colors. Love the feel. More butterflies that I had sewn together. And I had taken 2 of the pages and I glued them together. I had an idea. I had received some artwork from our grandson, and I did put Miles' art, so I made it into a pocket to keep that in here. And I can fold it out. I made sure I could fold it. And he wrote on here, and I just put the date or the year. And then it's in the pocket. A belly band. I turned it into a tag, and I put an eyelet, a journaling card tag, and then just at that moment added some fun paper. I had this word daughter. Nothing on here is from my daughter, but I thought I'd just put that on. It was fun. This was magazine. A tag. Embellishments from a dress. More of my vintage photo collection, and this was from the packaging from my Happy Mail or my Etsy order. I took that apart and made it a belly band, and then I had this piece of paper that I vintaged up. For my journaling, and then I could add that. Bits and pieces, from different magazines at different times, and it all just came together. And the back of my journal. And it all gets a nice hug, a cuff. Well, that is the flip through of my latest Shabby magazine spine journal. I'm hoping you are inspired. You can use anything to make a journal, something you already have, with a theme, without a theme. The possibilities are endless. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining me. I really appreciate it. Always remember to be adventurous and stay fresh. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.